Hello, viewers. Our today's guest is Professor Olga Bonch-Osmolovskaya. Professor Olga is a researcher, eminent research scholar, actually, a lecturer at the Institute of Oriental Manuscripts of Russian Academy of Science, and her research interests include the history of Sino-Japanese relations, Confucianism, and others. Professor Olga, thank you very much and welcome to the interview.
Yes, hello. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Thank you for inviting me.
Let's begin with the latest development. Recently, President Donald Trump has said that the best option for Ukraine is to become a part of Russia. In my words, in your words, that Ukraine should reintegrate with Russia because Ukraine has always been a part of Russia before the
Yes.
1990. So, what's your opinion about Trump's this particular announcement that Ukraine should actually become a part of Russia?
Well, you see, it's quite a complicated situation because there are a lot of numerous speculations, and to my mind, at least for now, it's still a little bit too early to say that the real negotiations have taken place. The picture was highly distorted, and well, from what we can see now, Trump has at least had quite a false perception of our situation. He doesn't really know Russia. He just took place, and for now he listens to different opinions. Expectations are very high, but nothing in these negotiations is ready yet. Trump has, well, at least from what we can see now, has no specific plan for Ukraine. Of course, on one hand, he desired to end this conflict. And what he said about Ukraine is completely true. Of course, it's a part of Russia. So, yes, a war with Russia and confrontation with us are not priorities for the new US administration. That's for sure as well. And for Trump, Russia is not an antagonistic or crucial factor. It's rather secondary for him. Moreover, those who actively pursued Trump for nearly a decade, accusing him of working for the Russians, have now been expelled from the state apparatus and are under investigation. Consequently, all suspicions that Trump might have collaborated with Russia have been cleared in the US. But how could he end the Ukrainian conflict? That's the main question, I think, right now. And it seems to me that Trump does not have a clear and definite model for this either. In this regard, it is crucial for him to start serious strategic negotiations with our leader, with President Putin, during which not only the Ukrainian conflict, but the entire range of pressing global issues can be discussed, because the Ukrainian conflict, it's only a part, and well, rather very big part, but just a part of many global issues that we have to solve right now. So Trump is leading, well, we can say, quite a conservative revolution in the West today. His ideology is changing almost 180 degrees, revealing very unexpected and new geopolitical interests. So the US is beginning to see itself not merely as the territorial seat of the world government, globalist, as we thought that they are for eternal time, but as a nation state with its own interests, sovereignty, and priorities. And well, Ukrainian conflict is not number one priority in his agenda. So what he said about Ukrainian conflict is right, but talking about the negotiation process and how we will end this is, well, it's still a little bit too early.
Professor Volga, you and I both know that this kind of so-called allegations on Trump of the Russian collusion. It was a creation of the American deep state, Clinton's, particularly Hillary Clinton, George Soros, actually a lot of the bunch of the people, those who want to jeopardize global peace because
Yes.
they are afraid of Russia. Actually, they are afraid of President Putin because they cannot buy him, they cannot tame him, and that's the main reason. Now, with this situation, that when already understand that the so-called Russia collusion theory, it has totally backfired because President Trump even now understands that this was one of the biggest part of conspiracy against the United States itself. And on the other hand, also we know that the sanctions, mad sanctions on Russia and Russians and other part of the world, it has drastically backfired.
Yes.
So, in my understanding, possibly you would agree with me that Trump is going to also lift all those sanctions that the Biden administration have imposed on Russia and Russians. But in this case, they have also, in the name of freezing Russian assets, Biden has stolen Russian assets, or at least he has attempted to steal Russian assets and pass it on to their lapdog Zelensky, who is actually a date expert president of Ukraine. And then ultimately, this was the Ukraine war. By and large, has been a money laundering scheme of the Biden administration, Clinton's, and other members of the American deep state. If
Mhm.
Trump is serious and if Trump is sincere about what he said, that Ukraine should become part of Russia, that don't you think that it is also time that the United States should unfreeze and the European Union also should unfreeze the Russian cash assets, return it to Russia, and seek apology for doing this kind of the injustice to Russian people because they are not freezing the asset of President Putin. It is everything belongs to Russian people. President Putin is not like he's not a dictator. President Putin is not a king or emperor. So it was a betrayal with the Russian people. What is your opinion? What is your expectation? If Trump is really serious about letting Ukraine become a part of Russia, what will happen? What should also happen to the sanctions and the assets, Russian assets?
Well, of course, I can agree with you that these sanctions are completely unjust, and following the statements about Ukraine and everything that he said and already has done with his administration during this just first time in the office. Of course, following this, it would be very logical to lift some sanctions and to normalize the dialogue with Russia, that's for sure. I think that, well, we can even say that first steps in this direction were already done because he banned the US aid organization. And the ban on US aid is, well, such a significant and fundamental move which importance cannot be overstated. And the big, you know that well, actually, USAID was banned and halted in Russia already during the third term of President Putin. He banned it, but it played a direct role in drafting a lot of well, government documents in Russia. For example, Yeltsin's constitution, where, of course, yes, for now we're talking about the sanctions, which are unjust, and the current situation. But these are the consequences that already, well, for now we have to deal with them. But the story is very long, actually. And President Trump, I think he understands this. So he started, I think, from the right points. First, for example, the USA. He said that it's a criminal organization. And Elon Musk said it's time for it to die, and it's very true. It affected a lot Russian inner situation because our constitution was Yeltsin's constitution was written well under the pressure, I would say, of the people who worked with the USA. That's basically the CIA agents. So it operated in Russia very, very well before it was halted. Now it is gone. Still, its agents, I think, work in Russia, just not in a very obvious way. So the steps are being done in this direction. I don't think that Trump is, a real friend of European Union in the way that he, for example, said that, well, the Ukrainian conflict is not our deal, in the way that European Union should actually take the responsibility, especially economical responsibility, for the Ukrainian conflict. So for him, of course, they stated after make America great again, they stated make Europe great again. But we know that, well, it's a long process, and I'm not sure that he will be best friend of those people who are ruling European Union now. Of course, he supports the right-wing opposition in European Union now. These leaders still are, well, like they're quite significant, but they don't rule for now. So that's it's a rather long story from what we're having now and from how Trump probably sees this whole operation.
Professor Olga, now it's a two-part question I would like to ask you. You and I know that the Western weapons which have been landing into the hands of the neo-Nazis in Kiev, now we know that they are selling it to underground criminal organizations, including the jihadist groups, the Kiev regime I'm talking about. And on the other hand, Zelensky, he has been practically trading on the lives with the lives of the Ukrainian people for his own benefit, while he was making billions of dollars for him and his masters in Washington. He was letting Ukrainians die in the battlefield, a battle that Ukraine can never win. So, and at the same time, you also know that this Zelensky, he has imposed very strong, strict censorship on media in Ukraine. My newspaper BLiTZ is banned in Ukraine, and they accuse us as being mouthpiece of Kremlin, and I don't know anyone in Kremlin at all. So now, don't you think that Trump should first of all force Zelensky to open the media's inflow into Ukraine, international media, including my newspaper, so that people of Ukraine will know what has happened to them, how Zelensky and his neo-Nazi cohort have practically robbed the nation, entire nation. And now he is leaving the country to a situation where President Trump is demanding that the money America gave to Ukraine, now they must repay with their precious natural mineral resources, what we already knew, that ultimately Ukrainians are going to suffer. And this Zelensky is the greatest traitor of the history of the humanity. So my question is now that how do you see, as a Russian citizen, that weapons going to criminal organizations, which can also pose threat to Russia? And secondly, what is your opinion about now opening up Ukraine for for the people to know what has actually happened to them?
Yes. Well, first, to start from your first question, how do I see the situation with weapons being resold to criminal organizations? Well, Zelensky is a war criminal, and that's for sure. Trump said that he wants to stop this war as soon as possible. Well, we all understand that Zelensky is not interested in this, both economically and in any other way, because he remains in power only as long as the military actions continue. He has no chance in winning the elections. So Zelensky will try to do everything possible to prolong the conflict for as long as possible because he benefits from this, because he lives while the conflict is still ongoing. Basically, his life depends on this, and actually, life of many other people who supports him. In the ideal scenario, he aims to draw NATO into this conflict. We know a lot about his well, absolutely unimaginable cruelty, about his absolutely unjust decisions, crazy decisions, basically. Well, and from this point of view, Zelensky has become just tiresome. You know, first he entertained everybody as a clown, especially Western audience. Then he spilled blood, using all methods to grab attention. But now he has nothing left to shock, actually, to surprise, to inspire, I think, those people in the West who actually wanted him to continue. His star is starting to fade. That's for sure. He trades a lot of weapons, yes, and people under him also are doing a lot of, dark deeds, we can say. But the West is getting distracted by other fronts. That's obviously. And in this situation, I think the initiative in the will go to other people, basically to Trump and to Putin, who will negotiate about this whole situation and about his crimes without him. You know, he is not a political subject anymore. He is not a person who could be asked about how to end this situation, how to live after this. You know, he is not included into this discussion. The great people will discuss this. Trump will discuss this. Putin will discuss this. Of course, following the multipolarity agenda, we will invite other great countries to discuss this and how to judge him. But Zelensky, after doing everything what he has done, will not be included in this dialogue, and this is the main consequence of his so-called presidency and his his political career, I would say, if it can be called a political career. This is the first one, and the second one, the second question about media that should be opened. Well, yes, I think that you know that basically USA, again coming back to this, well, it was through the efforts of USA, the whole anti-Russia project in Ukraine was done very successfully. It was created in Ukraine and successfully going on, or well, at least was going on until now. So they bought all media, they bought all journalists, they bought all leaders of society opinions, everybody worked for them. Now it has been shut down, so I think at least people who were receiving such an extensive salaries and the grants and everything, foundations, financial support, will at least lose their enthusiasm, at least partly, because these kind of people usually work for money. They don't really work for ideas. You know, and as soon as they stop receiving extensive financial support, they probably will think of changing, you know, changing the affiliation, we could say. Well, my answer to you is, of course, the media should be opened, but speaking realistically, Well, I don't think that it could be done just like this, in one moment. It's a very, very long process, especially Zelensky is still in the office. All the people who controlled media still are there. It's just the whole system is a little bit collapsing, crashing down, I know that there are a lot of absolutely normal people, even in Kiev. They understand the situation. They support Russia. They're waiting for Russia there. And all these media, newspapers, TV, propaganda don't really, infiltrate their minds. But most of the people, of course, are still under this brainwashing propaganda. So we have to change this. I think it can be changed, especially after Russia comes to Kiev, and we finally will have all the resources to have a dialogue, normal dialogue with the Ukrainian people. But for now, it's very complicated to do.
I will play a video at the end of this interview about how the sanctions has backfired. But before that, I'd like to. I know that you are also um, somehow connected to the great philosopher, Mr. Dr. Alexander Dugin, and also you and I both know the tragic case of his daughter, Daria Dugina, who was a journalist and who was assassinated. So Alexander Dugin has been always coming up with very newer types of newer patterns of ideas and thoughts, which would be which would be beneficial to the nations in the global south. And Alexander Dugin has actually few months ago, not few months, even for a year or more, he has been already indicating the collapse of the deep state in the US, and he has been already indicating that how ultimately the hostile West will come towards Russia because Putin is on the right path and others are not on the right path. So can you please just very briefly tell my audience something about the Dr. Alexander Dugin and also his daughter, Daria Dugina?
Well, there's a lot to tell actually, because Professor Dugin is definitely one of the leading philosophers of our time. He is a person of extensive knowledge. He always writes and speaks in a very insightful and very deep way. He sees, he has this great ability to see the political situation, some philosophical problems, not just from one angle, because people tend to do so. They have some position, they hold this position, and they are looking straight at the subject. But Professor Dugin kind of found a way to skip this problem, and he always tries to see the situation in a very holistic way. And that's why I listen to him, how he talks about Trump, for example, how he understands the political situation and civilizational crisis in Ukraine, the geopolitical. So he is a person who accomplished himself in very different areas. And Daria in this way was a true daughter of her father, because their family, they're interested in basically in every important and interesting thing. It's philosophy, it's politics, it's geopolitics, it's economy, it's music, it's culture, and they know a lot about everything. When you just ask, it's always an interesting dialogue. Professor Dugin definitely has a very profound view on ideology as well. And I think that with his opinions, with his help, it will be definitely a way for us to, to go back, to come back to Russian idea and to become a real sovereign state civilization as we are, but we are still, still kind of still on the way to coming back to ourselves. And Dugin was one of the first people, I think, after the collapse of the USSR, who understood this, who understood that we are under liberal propaganda, under globalist propaganda, and we have to oppose this. And he had courage. This is very important because he was, he was anti-globalist before it became mainstream, before it became so popular, and he is very stable in his views. I respect this a lot because, a lot of people changed a little bit, some people were liberals, after that they became conservatives, something like that. It's very good. But he was very stable, very, very firm in all the ideas that he fights for. It's quite a phenomenon in intellectual sphere of Russia. And Daria, of course, she was very young. She was a great young woman who just started her career as a journalist, as a young politician, as a social activist, as a young philosopher. For now, her parents, Professor Dugin and his wife, already published 5 books of Daria, and it's quite something because she was such a young lady. But after her tragic death, it was possible to find so many materials that they already published 5 books with her lectures, with her poetry, with her interviews, with her just different essays. And I think it tells us a lot about prominency of this person. Definitely, Daria became a symbol. And she became a symbol not because she was just a nice person. She became a symbol because she sacrificed her young life on this altar of anti-globalism war, of this anti-West, in the West in the bad sense of this word, war. And yes, she was my friend, and I was very happy, very lucky to know her.
Every journalist should be a fighter, a real journalist, not a propagandist. And Professor Olga, the last question, that since now the Ukraine situation will be unfolding gradually as we expect, and so many things will happen within the next few weeks or months. So at this stage, that is there any chance that there should, or do you think that there should be more interaction between the journalists in the global, amongst the journalists in the global south, with the Russian and Ukrainian issues, and not the journalists, not only journalists, academics and other intellectuals? Do you think there is a necessity of such things?
Yes, I definitely think so. We have to find ways and new projects and do these projects, have courage to do these projects, and to find new formats for dialogue. We are already doing this press tour, international press tour projects.
Oh,
we
really?
invite, yes,
Press
we
to
invite
international. Okay.
Yes, international journalists to Russia, to Donbass. We provide them, we provide them with everything just for them to be a bridge of communication. And I gladly participate in this project just because I think that this is the right thing to do, because we have to do this, because we have to normalize and to establish new threads for the dialogue. So we welcome all journalists, and we want them to come, and we definitely want to go to meet them as well. So we're very interested in establishing something new. For example, press tours in different countries, like in Bangladesh, for example, to know more. Well, speaking more globally, global South, of course. There should be, to my mind, apart from these journalistic activities, there definitely should be philosophical conferences where we gather intellectuals, scholars, and very importantly, philosophers to just discuss this, a little bit taking ourselves up, looking at the situation from the up high, like through the bird's eye, from different angles. Because what is going on should be seen not only in political perspective, but especially in philosophical and eschatological perspective. All these civilizational conflicts, uh, all these local conflicts, in the end, they come to be a global philosophical problem, which our civilization now faces to. And these kind of questions cannot be just solved by some political measures. It should be done both by politicians and by philosophers, so that they combine their views. And plus to this, of course, journalists, intellectuals, scholars should be gathered in this kind of activities. So yes, I think that definitely we have to do this. We have to promote this kind of initiatives. I gladly participate in this kind of things myself already, and invite everybody to join us on this.
Professor Olga Bonch-Osmolovskaya, I'd like to express my profound gratitude to you for kindly granting your precious time to BLiTZ. And also, I would like to wish the very best to the press tours. And very near future, I'm sure that we will host you in Bangladesh so that you will visit my country and see how the nations in the global south are prospering, particularly because Bangladesh and Russia has a decades-old relations, and our cooperation, the cooperation between Dhaka and Moscow is strengthening every day. And once again, thank you very much for granting your precious time.
Thank you very much. I was very happy to have this dialogue with you, and I hope that I will meet you. I will meet you in Moscow, and you will meet me in Dhaka soon, so that we will. Yes, thank you very much.